Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for another few minutes of fun. You can see I've already got inky fingers. I've been doing some die cutting and creating my winter die cuts in the same way as I created my autumn leaf die cuts. If you missed that, I'll link below. This is the exact same process. I'm afraid I didn't film this one, but lots of greenery and lots of snowflakes ready to play with there. And I thought we'd take some of the backgrounds from the other day. If you missed that few minutes of fun, I'll link that video as well and take them on to the next stages. And I think, oh, hello, Snowflake. You're getting ahead of yourself. I think the two I want to work with are the ones with sort of full night sky coverage. So one of each of those. So the birch trees and the other night skies, and the other random ones can wait for another time. And yeah, I'm thinking some mistletoe, because that's a lovely seasonal berry. So this is EAB 29 mistletoe edition from my Eclectica Alison bomber stamps at PaperArtsy. So we're going to stamp and colour these, cut them out, and create some lovely sort of greenery arrays with maybe even some cinnamon sticks. That sort of thing is where I'm headed. So I'm going to get the craft mat out, get some watercolour paper so that we can stamp and colour these. Doesn't have to be watercolour paper, it can be any kind of paper you've got. And of course any other stamps that you've got. You don't have to have my mistletoe stamps, but that's what I'm going to play with because they're here. Back in a sec. Ready to play. Obviously you can colour your stamps with anything you enjoy using. Marker pens, coloured pencils, felt tip pens, paints, anything you like. I quite often get my watercolours out to do it. Because they happen to be nearby, I decided I'm going to use some of the distress watercolour pencils. I've also got some distress inks ready to play with in case I want those. I might even want distress oxides as well. I don't know, because they're opaque, so that sometimes helps. And just because I can, I'm probably going to stamp multiple ones of these so that I've got plenty to play with. And I'm sort of in two minds about what colour to stamp them in. I need them stamped in an archival ink, a permanent ink, because if I'm going to be watercolouring, if I use a water-based ink to stamp them with, then that's just going to bleed everywhere as I'm colouring. Favourite colour of mine to stamp botanicals in is always olive. I enjoy that. I've also got leaf green here. There's peat moss, which is a quite nice grey green, but I sort of feel like I want a little bit more. The leaves I'm going to be working with are quite sort of green as opposed to bluey green or grey green, so I think I probably want something that's going to hold its own against that. Another option might be to have a look in turquoise. So I think what I'll do is I'll stamp multiple ones, because I can always use mistletoe this time of year. I'll stamp in various colours, and if I don't clean the stamp in between, then those colours are also going to sort of layer themselves up. As I said, you don't need watercolour paper for this. Oh, look. Right, so that tells me straight away I didn't ink it up properly, and I also didn't press down properly. And of course, because I'm working with watercolour paper, the texture of that is just resisting a little bit. So easy solution, if you want to be able to A, make sure you get a decent stamping, and B, if you want to be able to re-stamp after colouring, do what I'm always forgetting to do and use a stamping platform. There are ways of doing this if you don't have a stamping platform, making sure you line things up so that you can re-stamp and block them, but I do have a stamping platform, so idiot that I am, let's now use it. So the reason I cut this a bit smaller is just so that I can fit it on here nice and easily. So where did that stamp go? Still stuck on my plate. So instead of here, I'm now just going to place it down here. It's still got a bit of ink on, so I'm going to not mess around. I come and pick it up with my stamping platform. That's going to give me a little impression. But now I can ink as many times as I like. And in fact, Why don't we do two at once, since we can? I'm going to pop that there. So as I stamp this one, it's also going to pick up the other, and we'll be able to ink that up next time. There we go. So right in the middle here, I keep clearly not inking those berries in the middle. So I'll just do this again to show you. And this time, hopefully, I managed to ink up the berries in the middle, and we'll get a good imprint. There we are. No, it's still not. Why is that happening then? Let's go one more time. Am I just not pressing down in the right place? There we go. Good. So that olive is looking quite dark to me, but as I colour it in, that's all going to change. So we'll see how we get on. And I've now got sort of space here where I can, if I want, I can use this as my palette. So that's just some ink down there. This is a water brush. And I can go straight in like so and just start colouring my leaves. Easy as that. If I zoom in a little bit, will that help? Bear with me. There we are. How's that look? Yep, all on camera. So I can start with just some peeled paint here. It's a nice toothsome green, sort of a little touch of lemoniness to it. And I'm not going to be terribly precious about this. I want a watercolory look. I want maybe a little bit of Oxide Mowed Lawn. Let's see. Ooh, that's vivid. Look at that. But if I mix it with the peeled paint, I'll maybe get something that's actually quite mistletoe-y. Yes, perfect. It's sort of trial and error, but it's also, yeah, spending a lot of time with inks and colours and kind of going, I think this is going to work. You try it and it either does or it doesn't. In round there. And now that I've got the other ink colours on here, and as you can see, I'm really being very loose with this colouring. I don't want perfection. I do really like that Mowed Lawn Oxide. It's got a real vivid presence. Any detailing I want to add later, I can either add more detail using the Distress Watercolour pencils, or I could do it with some pen work. You can mix and match your mediums, hence mixed media, in any way that makes you happy. So I'm going with almost pure Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide down there. Bit of peeled paint in on that one. Bit of oxide on that one. And so it's just giving me a really organic mixing of the paint on the image. And I don't need to worry too much about precision. Done. Simple as that. Simple as that. If you feel like you've lost some detail, then you can always go back in with another stamping. But I'm actually kind of okay with that. I do want to give a little bit of sense of dimension to the berries. And so I think what I'm going to use for that is maybe something like Speckled Egg, or Weathered Wood might be the one. Let's see. I've got both of those here in pencil form. Weathered Wood's going to be quite a dark one. Speckled Egg is quite light. But again, I can do the exact same process. So I'm dipping that in a water jar, and then I'm just going to work some colour onto the palette. Come on. So you have to let that water and the pigment kind of interact. If you want to see these pencils in action in more detail, there's a whole swatching video using the distress pencils and showing how you can apply them in different ways. So I can either, as I say, get myself some paint down on the mat there, or now that the nib of this is wet, I can just go around the bottom edge of a number of berries, and it's just to give them a hint of shadow, a hint of shading, particularly maybe the berries that are behind. Might be darker than the ones that are on top. And it's just to give a bit of detail to that. I might even go so far as to go in with this berry behind with the weathered wood, which is a sort of darker grey-green, and maybe under these two, just to give that impression of depth. Maybe this one down back here, and maybe under there, and maybe, yeah. And the only other thing that I might be tempted to do is to give a little warming up or reinvigorating in a darker colour to the centre of the berries here. So this is just a black handwriting pen, really, Pilot. So I'm just giving those berry buttons an extra bit of attention to bring them into focus. Another possibility is with a white pen, I might just highlight some of the details on these leaves. But really overall I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to give it a quick blast with the heat gun, not too much, because I don't want the page to start curling up, because I am going to go back in with another stamping just to bring it back to life. Do I want to go in with the same colour again? Olive. Yes, let's do olive. So these are still in exactly the same position they were. Can't have moved because nothing has changed in relationship. So having painted those, I'm just going to go back in and rejig them, just to get all the detail of all those lines back. Yeah, done with that. There they are. Because I've got two tags, I sort of want this twice over. Ooh, another thing you can do, of course, given we've got all these glorious spritzy things with shimmer this time of year, you could even paint with a little bit of distress spritz. Exact same process. Pop it down onto the mat here, and I can add just a little touch of shimmer to a couple of these leaves, which will be quite exciting when the light catches it. I'm not doing it to all of them because the light wouldn't necessarily catch everywhere. Ooh, fun. See, I told you we were having fun. I hope that was on camera. When those dry, at the moment they're wet so they're catching the light, but I promise when it's dry it'll shimmer away. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with another stamping of these. I'm keeping this on the tray because I want it in a minute for those, and then I'll be back to do the cutting out. Here they are ready for some cutting, but I'm just thinking I might put a little bit of slightly darker, so this is Rustic Wilderness, but the Oxide. Rustic Wilderness in the ink version is really about as dark as a green comes. Just thinking I might do a little bit of gentle deepening of shadows down in the centre of those. Mistletoe leaves have a sort of curl inwards, so just darkening those interiors gives us a little sense of the movement of those leaves. And then also in these little knotty bits where the stems meet, really these extraordinary little sort of twirls of stem. I'm just again giving some sort of hints of shadow. And this, I mean, seriously, I could fiddle for hours with painting and getting dimension and so on and so forth, but it's just a little touch that adds detail and depth. And if you feel like you've overdone it, nothing easier, because this is a water-based medium, and if there's too much of it, you just need to get it wet and then lift it up. So here's, I'm just cleaning off the nib so I can put in some water, go in and scrape that, and then just lift up, and I'm just lightening the load of pigment. That one's a bit bold and sort of not subtle, so let's lift it up. That one's very dark in there, but that's quite good. I mean, things, if it's in shadow, it'll be a lot darker, but I hope you can see that it's just added more life, more detail, more shift and variation to what's going on those leaves. So time to do some cutting, I think, because otherwise I'll be here all day messing with my mistletoe leaves. The water will spread it out. If that pigment's sort of too lumpy for you, just blending it in. There we go. That will do, seriously. And I'll clean this off here exactly the same way I cleaned it off the stamping platform. Spritz of water, and it's gone. So cutting, you really don't need to watch me do all the cutting out. The main thing I learned about fussy cutting, and I'm nobody's master fussy cutter, I don't do it at high speed, is to move the paper rather than the scissors. That's something I've mentioned before, I know, and there are master fussy cutters out there who can give you far more precise tips, but my main one is move the paper, not the scissors. And I'm going for an outline fussy cut here, partly because I just want to make sure I've got that little white outline, because it's going to help my leaves show up against the other greenery that's going to be around. If I'm putting lots of that die cut greenery and the leaves are green all the way to the edges of the die cut, if I were doing a really full-on proper fussy cut, so I tend to cut around the edges first and then go in for those detailed bits later. I'm just going to do one of these on camera, and then I'll leave you to imagine the rest. So it's just going round and back down, and always with a stem. I like to cut at the angle that I've tried to draw at, because it just gives it more fun than a straight line at the end of the stem. And then round this middle bit, in and out of the leaves. Sorry, the light today is coming and going, so I hope I'm not casting really annoying shadows with my hand, but it's a bit difficult to do anything else because I have light coming in from many directions in the craft room, so almost anywhere I stand there's going to be a shadow cast in some direction or another. I'm really lucky to have light coming in all directions. But for something like this, it does make it tricky in terms of how do I not stand in the light? Just round that little knobbly bit and back up around the other leaf. There we go. So I'm going to fussy cut the others, and yes, it's just a question of patience with this larger one, and I'll be back to do some collaging. Back in a sec. Almost there. I've just come back for this last little bit, because obviously when you get to this bit here, you've got a choice. You could just leave that in there. It'll create a little bit more sturdiness, more of that in a second. Or you can dive in to cut this out. And again, I'm sure there are people who have expert ways of doing this. Mine is to slightly bend the image, make a little nick with my scissors right in the middle, and then I just snip, snip, snip in one direction, just in a straight line. I'm just creating flexibility in the paper. Snip, snip, snip in the opposite direction. Snip, snip, snip at right angles, and snip, snip, snip at right angles. So that's just given me a little bit of space to maneuver in that internal gap. So now I can just go from the edges. Again, I'm trying as far as I can to stay out of the light as I do this. And I can just come round to each of those snippings, taking out the excess, and then I've got my little gap right in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And my plan now is to sort of layer up some dimensional collaging, because I like dimensional collaging. You could, of course, do this in a flat way. I'm thinking these are slightly different scales. So this is drawn to slightly smaller scale. You can see the berries are smaller. So either they just happen to be less mature berries, or they're slightly in the background. So I'm thinking it's something like that, and maybe something like that. And I'm going to layer in some other greenery, maybe a snowflake or two, and it's just going to be sort of mistletoe against the night sky in a really romantic sort of way. But these tags are all bending up because the other day we inked them and we painted them and we did all sorts of texture paste and things. So my first task is to glue these down to some waste cardboard. I'll be back with that in just a moment. Yes, so sturdiness, as I mentioned. Putting the tags onto cardboard is something I've always enjoyed doing because it gives them a sort of sturdiness and a presence in the world. Sturdiness on these die cuts is also achieved or better if you've got fairly decent cardstock or paper stock. So this is 200 grams or 90 pounds cold press. 300 would be harder to cut, but would give you even more sturdiness. So when you're doing dimensional collaging, the flimsiness of this, you really don't want to be doing that on copy paper is all. It doesn't have to be watercolour card. It could be normal white card by all means, especially if you're using markers or marker card or all of that sort of business. That's all fine. But flippy floppy just paper won't do if you want to be using any of these die cut elements into dimensional collaging. So this is, I really am not going to do all of this on camera for you, because all I'm doing is putting glue on the back of the tag. I'm going to glue it down to the cardboard. This is just some old packaging cardboard. I have hordes of the stuff. Anytime a parcel arrives, if it's a decent cardboard box, it gets stored and saved for this. And at the moment, yes, I can see that cardboard itself is not necessarily terribly flat, but believe me, when you glue one piece of wobbly card to another piece of wobbly card, somehow magically both pieces of wobbly card become flat pieces of card. I think it's to do with the moisture of the glue. It's to do with two surfaces interacting, but somehow one piece of not flat card and another piece of not flat card glued together becomes a piece of flat card. And then all it is trimming around the edges. So I've ended up doing it on camera. It's only so many times I can be bothered to stop and start, I'm afraid. Yeah, that seems fairly well glued. That's my usual Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue. Any acrylic glue will do. Doesn't need to be something special. You're gluing paper to card, which ought to be one of the easiest things to achieve because they're both porous surfaces, simple, straightforward, not quite glued down at the edges there. Having said that, that's partly because I'm being slightly impatient because I want to get to the fun stuff. I want to get to the playing with my greenery and my snowflakes. So just trimming those corners, and before I put twine through at the very end, I'll just stick the scissor through there. If I don't end up doing that on camera, that's all I've done. I don't usually go in with an actual hole punch. I usually just stick a scissor blade through and live with the resulting roughness and mess and texture. Yeah, it does just need a little bit of extra glue. I wasn't generous enough with the glue at the start. There we go. So they are ready for some collaging. Now, one reason particularly for these that I wanted to get them onto card is that I'm thinking of doing a little bit of slightly more heavy duty collaging. You may have noticed at the beginning that I've got hovering in the wings, theatrical term, some cinnamon sticks, some pine cones, picked up on a forest walk. These, I'm thinking of sort of using these as the base for the collage. Right, time for some greenery. I think I want a couple of sprigs of fir branch, maybe some berries. Don't know about berries because we've got actual berries, so I don't know that I'm bothered about berries for this. These are various dies, Thinlits dies, Holtz Thinlits dies. I will link, as always, in the description below. Not link, but put the details in the description below. All you really need to do is put those details into Google search, and hopefully you'll come up with some vaguely local craft stockists online to supply you. That's a nice large one. Maybe I want another large one. Let's see what we've got. This is why you have to cut a lot of these, because you do start to go through them really quickly. That's another large one. Let's have you and just see what we can do with what we've got there. Right. So if you're going up there, and this is again working in pairs, my usual thing. I've collaged in pairs before, and the balancing act that I enjoy of kind of composition. If one's going left, the other's going right. If one's going up, the other's going down. Something like that. Maybe something like that. I want my mistletoe in place fairly early so that I can see what I'm working around. There's something like that, and something like that, and then another little bit of greenery maybe does this. Yes, I do like that. And another little bit of greenery does that in the other direction. That might be enough greenery, or we might want a little bit more coming out behind, or we just shift that upwards a little bit. There we go, that's what it is. Shift the large one up, pull the others down. So I'm just getting a rough idea at the moment, positioning and placement and what I want to have happen. I'm going to tuck a little pine cone below here, a little pine cone below here, and maybe one going upwards as well. That's quite nice. Oops, sorry. And one going upwards there. I've got these little tiny alder cones. They are from alder trees. Seem to grow in quite a lot of profusion here along with the birches, so that could maybe go in. So there's a slightly darker one. Yes, I like that. Let's pop those away, don't need those. Well, maybe we do, maybe we don't. And then the other thing I pulled out, because I love them, are these little sort of Christmassy snowballs, baubles, Holtz Idea-ology baubles. And they will just give a lovely touch of sort of light and shimmer at the very end. But I think first of all, we'll get this basically glued down. So for this, I'm going to use a mixture of the Cosmic Shimmer with the fine applicator and probably some of my Liquitex Gloss Super Heavy Gel. Because when you're using heavyweight items like the pine cones, well, the pine cones are not heavyweight, but they're quite bulky. Certainly the cinnamon sticks are not the lightest thing in the world. This is quite helpful because it's so gloopy that things sort of stay in place straight away before it's even dried. I don't know if you can see, it's sort of like heavy cream cheese or peanut butter. So I think I'm going to start with that because then I can probably tuck in my leaves around it. So a good jagged surface will be a good sticking surface. If you spread it all smoothly, the chances are you'll get into trouble with. And let's pop the other one down as well while we're at it. Pick you up. So those sticks being at a slight angle are what gives me room to have some collaging above and below. Yeah, good. I'm gonna, while I'm here, I'm gonna pop some onto there, and you're kind of lying in that direction. Pop some onto there, and you're kind of lying in that direction. Oops. Maybe tucked up like so. I'll wait to do these top ones because I now need to do a little bit of sticking in of leaves. So let's pop you to one side and you to one side, and you to one side and you to one side. And let's go with layering these up. So because of the dimensionality, I'm not going to put glue on the whole of this die cut. I'm going up that central main stem. This is why I like the fine applicator. And I'm going a little way onto a couple of these fronds. And that's going to mean that I can pick up, ruche up, kind of not let it be completely flat. If you want it completely flat, by all means, glue it so it's completely flat. So this, yeah, you can see it is tucked quite nicely under there and somehow seems to have found a space to slide under. So we'll stick to that. This one, same thing, down the central stem, into the leafy bits. That's sort of there. This, I'm definitely going to get the berries and the stem and sort of up into those bits. I've just dripped on top of the pine cone, but I'm not going to panic because as long as I'm quick about it, I can clear that off with a bit of paper towel. And in any case, you know there's going to be some snowy spatter at some point, which will deal with that. I think we need just a little bit more of this underneath here. I've got it sticking to the cinnamon stick, but not to the tag at the moment. So a little bit more of my gloopy one, just to make sure I've got a firm connection between those. Good, so that's quite a lot glued down on that tag now. Going to go with you for positioning. Yeah, right across the middle, nice. And again, I'm going up the stems, but I'm mostly leaving the leaves free to do what they want. The berries I'm sort of gluing, but I want it nestled. I don't want it so pressed down and losing all its life and liveliness. And then this one's just going to kind of go in, yep, like so, in the other direction. So with these, obviously the ends of these are fragile. If you wanted to post these, you're going to need to wrap them into some tissue paper and that sort of thing. And you might have to live with a little bit of creasing. You can always uncrease paper afterwards. So we'll come back in with the pine cones in a sec. First of all, let's get this one pretty much into place. Oh, so this is glued behind here. So those ones aren't. These ones are both tucked behind the glue of the cinnamon stick. No worries, it's all fine, because what I can do once I've got this one in place, again, up the stem, hitting a few of those other stems, but not comprehensively. Want that one quite high up. Good contact. Let's pop this one in as well, going sideways, nice. Again, up the stems and pretty much on the berries, but mostly not on the leaves. So again, it stays full of movement. So these ones, as I say, are tucked under this cinnamon stick, and that's fine if I just want to create a little bit of extra adhesion. I'm just going to go in and apply the glue to the tag and press that down to there. On this, I can bend it all the way up, if you can see that, to get some glue onto those bits there, and then again, just press that down. All very loose, all very easy. And then this one is just going to cover up all those sticky out bits and all those ends that don't quite meet and don't quite tuck down. I'm going to cover a multitude of sins, especially once we glue in these other pine cones. Definitely want them, definitely want them. Grand. So back to the gloopy glue. Gloopy glue. I'm just happy now. Just happy with the phrase gloopy glue. That goes on there. That goes on there. Tucked in as though they're kind of growing out of the cinnamon stick branch. That's the illusion that I'm playing with. Let's have you like so. Might need to trim that little bit of twig off, or maybe it'll just fit underneath. Quite like the little bit of twig. Nice. Oh, it makes me happy. What can I say? I love, you see, and I can, even though that glue is in no way dry, the gloopy glue, it's so sticky, like peanut butter, that it will hold those for me to pick that up and just sort of wave it around for you so you can see the dimension and the life in those leaves. Let's add a couple of these because they're kind of like little mistletoe berries themselves, so there's something quite pleasing about that to me. These come in lots of different sizes. I think probably what I want are medium and little. I don't think I want those giant ones because they're just going to detract from, yeah, that's too much. That's too much. And that rule of 3 that I've used with the pine cones, odd numbers of embellishments are usually more pleasing to the eye than even numbers. If I add 2 little pearly balls, that'll make 5 embellishments in total, not counting the twig because the twig is a different look. So I'm going to look at it with 2 to start with, and then I might be tempted to add a third because it might be 5 overall, or it might be 3 pine cones and 3 pearls. You see what I mean? To get odd numbers. The overall 5 might be the answer, or okay, tweezers. It's tweezer time. Not those tweezers. Where are my normal tweezers? Sorry, didn't mean to spit in your ear as I said ugh just then. Oh, pish. Turn around. Thank you. You stick upwards. You... Great. Go down there. So we've got 2 just sitting in there. I think it is going to probably be a third. 1 above. It's going to need 1 above, isn't it? There. Okay, we can do that. So I've got glue on my spatula, picking up the pearl. Could be a little pearl over the top. Dip it in the glue and then pop it where I want it. Just nestled in those pine cones. Good, so I've got 1 here. I need 1 more and 1 little one. Grand. So you are going there. You are going above, I think, or below. You're going there. And you are going above the cinnamon stick. Oh, lots of glue the wrong way up. There we are. Nicely done. I think we're going to tuck you down a bit further. So it's a kind of lucky spot for the eye if the light catches you. Going to need a little bit more glue on you because I've just wiped it all off in the wrong direction. Down you go. Tucked between those pine cones. So cute! There we go. Good. I think probably it's going to be white twine at the top, maybe, or normal twine, not sure. Let's wipe that off. Definitely don't need any more of those. What I might want, being me, are some words of some sort. Maybe some word stickers, maybe something from my quote stamps. While my brain is thinking about that, I'm going to add, of course, some snowy spatter. So this is the PaperArtsy Snowflake fresco paint, chalk acrylic. This is my scrabby old brush that's been sitting in the water jar. So just adding a bit of water to that so that I can go across the leaves, especially the pine cones and the cinnamon sticks, and into that starry sky to make it a slightly snowy sky. Definitely aiming at the pine cones there. I might even go so far as to do a little brush of snow onto the pine cones. They're still moving under that glue, so I'm being gentle, but I quite like that little frosty touch of snow. Grand. So that can dry. There's a slight waste of white paint, but I'll live. Every now and then you can't use everything or put it back in. So yes, I don't know, white, or maybe it's rusty wire at the top. I'm not sure yet. What I am going to do is grab some word stickers and see if I want them. Back in a sec. As always, there are options. There are various stickers from various years, clipping stickers, metallic stickers, little white and silver ones. I think there might be some gold ones in there as well, or black or something. I'm wondering about these Muse tokens, Christmas themed Muse tokens, which, as you can see, haven't been used. They've been being hoarded. Got my own EAB05 winter edition, which are lots of quotes full of winter thoughts, like it bright gleaming berries glistened. The crisp leaves of holly, mistletoe and ivy reflected back the light. I mean, so I could stamp that and cut pieces of that. Silent, soft and slow descends the snow. Nights of clear, days of clear brilliance. Blah, 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 blah. That's tempting. I'm gonna have a quick look in here to see if there's anything that I like the idea of. But what I'm most tempted by actually is maybe one of the bronze or the brassy ones of these. Greetings, that says. What do these others say? Greetings. Holiday, tradition. Oh, tradition and Yuletide have caught my eye. Santa Claus I don't want. Merriment, joyful, season. Joyful and season would be the other options. Let's and the positioning for that would be, instead of any pine at the top, oh, I do like that. Do I want the gold one or do I want the brown one? Don't want silver because I want it to merriment. Oh, it's the bronzy coloured one, isn't it? So what did I want in that case? Merriment and not Santa Claus. Oh, joyful and season I wanted, not merriment at all. Come back, merriment. I don't know whether these Muse tokens, especially the seasonal ones, are being produced at the moment, but they're the kind of thing you can sometimes find in a store, in a online store's back catalogue, as it were, just hoarded for years, and still therefore available for. I really like that. I really like that, how that just gives us an echo of the round shapes and the pinecone colours. And I think that might be enough of a word for this. I'll just have a quick look at a word sticker and see if there's anywhere a word sticker could go. So let's grab these out. Oh yes, see, I thought there were black ones. Let's take those away temporarily. Oh, see, I like it without as well. I do. Let's just experiment with this one because it seems to be loose. Peace on Earth would be a nice one to have, wouldn't it? Oh, you see, I like that idea as well. Just kind of tucked in there. Comfort and joy. And peace on earth. How important could that thought be right at the moment? And I sort of like, so with these, there's a sort of darkness and weight at the top of the tag that balances them quite well. With these, you get that lovely sense of infinity spreading off up into the night sky, whereas as soon as you put that down, it closes it all in. Keeping those away, I think gives those backgrounds more of a chance to. So the Muse token's going back in the box again. One of these days you'll get to come out and play. I promise. I promise. I promise. Now that I've remembered you're there, it's a question of searching through the seasonal box. I have things sort of sorted and oh, hello. Where are you off to? No, you don't. You're supposed to be there. That's because that glue is not dry yet. I need to leave these to do some drying rather than just keep nudging them around. But I think it is the subtlety of those little white word labels that your eye almost could miss, but that are there to just ask the world for a bit of peace and comfort and joy. Because I want them in straight, I'm actually going to glue them onto some more of this sturdy card that we were using for the mistletoe, because that'll mean that instead of being just a floppy word sticker, they have a bit more sturdiness to lie flat. Take that there. And that way they become more of a word stick. I could edge them with brown, but I don't think I want to. I think I want to keep their subtlety so that they don't detract from the leaves, from the greenery, from the berries. They're just a happy accident if your eye happens to catch the wording. Which one on which one? Comfort and joy, I think, goes there. Peace on earth goes there. Yeah. So that's just going to need just a smidge of glue. Again, it's going across leaves. It's balancing. It's delicate. It's fragile. But that's kind of part of the beauty of it. It's fragile like peace is fragile. Fragile like our comfort and joy on earth is fragile, and we have to actively look after all of it. There they are. There they are. So I'm going to zoom in as always for a close-up on that with a little bit of music, but I hope you've enjoyed seeing how those backgrounds from the other day got themselves a little bit of additional decoration. I think it will be some white twine at the top, so I'm going to stick my scissor blade through the hole, cut through the cardboard, add my twine, and then I'll be back to dive in for a close-up. Do leave any comments or questions down below. As always, I'll try to leave as much detail as I can in the description. Thank you so much for your company on this creative journey, and happy crafting all.